Yep. Okay. And we are live. Fantastic. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Just Two Dads, our weekly podcast that my partner in Thrive, my business partner, my colleague, my close friend, Sean Francis, and I do. Sean and I started this process we started this conversation several years ago, but really started this process just under a year ago to begin a conversation of two fathers who have children with special needs issues. And we found that our conversations were transcending the community of special needs. And so as we began to have these conversations, we're finding warriors, people who are taking their experience and making a difference in the world and changing the world. We've expanded our village, we've expanded our community so significantly now, and we're thrilled to be able to have a platform for people to meet some of these folks who are making a difference in the world. And we're all nervous, just so you know, because our guest today is somebody who we love dearly, we admire, we honor him for his leadership and who he is in the world. And I can't wait for you all to hear the conversation we're going to have today. And so before we get to this amazing gentleman, I just want to say hello to Sean Francis and welcome you to kick off our show today. Sean, how you doing, buddy?
I am, like we always say, it sounds so redundant. I'm, blessed, grateful, thankful, and happy. Generally speaking, for us to have this platform, I want to give a hello to our audience in the U.S. Virgin Islands listening on WSTX radio on the island of St. Croix, my people at home. And because our time is, we don't have any more of a limit than we usually do, but we have a tremendous amount of value to get from our guests. So I want to make sure that we make the most out of the time and kind of jump right into it. Our guest today is a man who is a friend and mentor, member of the special needs community, because he has two sons that are on the autism spectrum. But as it relates to his family, the story is much bigger than that. And he's a chief financial independence in the primary business that we are in, and has made it his business to live his life on purpose and teach others how to do that. And we couldn't be more thrilled than to have our friend here, Mr. Jeff Levitan. Jeff, welcome.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Brian. It's good to be with you today and your audience.
Well, thank you so much. We'd like to kind of jump in by, heroes, when you read comics or these days see movies, all heroes have an origin. And, that tells a story as to, where they came from. And nobody came out of the womb deciding that I'm going to be a special needs warrior. When your child is diagnosed, you're either a warrior or a worrier. And you are definitely not the latter. So why don't you begin by telling us a little bit about your origin, especially prior to becoming a parent, and what got you on the path to the time when the diagnosis of your children came about?
Well, thanks, Sean. I don't know that I consider myself a hero. But I will tell you my origin story, if you don't mind. I like all the superhero movies like most people do. I did grow up with a very humble beginning out of Chicago, Illinois. If anybody knows Chicago, there's the north side of Chicago, which is the old money. The west side of Chicago and the west suburbs are the new money. And the south side is no money. And that's where I'm from. I come from blue-collar parents, hardworking parents. They get up every day, and my dad was a truck driver. My mom waitressed. They worked very hard to put food on the table and raise my brother, Brian, and I. And they work hard like a lot of families do. I don't know if getting wealthy or financially independent was ever in the cards for them, but they just wanted to raise a happy, healthy family. And we struggled financially, like a lot of families do. And we moved a lot. And when I look back at my upbringing, I knew that I wanted to be somebody. I knew that I wanted to make enough money where I wouldn't have to fight about it. They say people are motivated either by the opportunity to gain something or the pain avoidance. And I think I was motivated by a pain avoidance strategy. I wanted to avoid the pain of struggling financially. So I knew I needed to learn about money, learn what to do with money. I worked in the trades my whole childhood. Growing up, I did every construction job you can think of. Played sports in high school. I got a little bit competitive there. And then I ended up at a community college because of finances. I wanted to go to a big college or university and ended up at a community college. My parents divorced when I was in high school, when I just finished high school, and went off to college and learned as much as I could, as much as somebody could at a community college and a state school. Went to Illinois State University, and then I got out into the real world of working and got my first corporate job, if you will. All the promises that if you're well-rounded, you get a great education, that you'll end up with a great job. I'm not so sure if that's true. Like many people, I've sent out thousands of resumes and hoped that at some point I'd get a job, not my ideal job. And like many people, I settled with whatever I got. And a couple of years into that, I was frustrated and underpaid and overworked and underrecognized. And I wanted to do something else. And thank God I ran into a guy at my apartment complex in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where I was living at the time. And he handed me a videotape that I watched, and it changed my life. It was basically about a business that he was working in, and he had extended the opportunity for me to go work in his business. It happened to be the financial field. And I liked the financial field. I wanted to know about money. I wanted to be good with money. And so I took him up on his offer. Luckily, they had something where I could start part-time. I didn't have to quit my job to try it. And I learned about money and finance and investing and insurance and everything else around the world and conversation of money. And I was good at it. I had the work ethic from being a blue-collar kid. I had the drive and determination, and then I had the tools, learning about financial literacy. And then I went on to teach people in that swath of middle America of people that weren't wealthy enough where they didn't have to work, and they weren't too broke where they literally needed just bankruptcy, but everyone in between. That's who we helped out. And we took an education-based approach and helped everybody with their finances, and I did really well. Matter of fact, by the time I was 30, I had a couple dozen locations, hundreds and hundreds of licensed financial professionals that I was in leadership of, and was helping lots and lots of families and making lots of money. So life couldn't have been any better financially. And I loved my career at that time. And I had dreams of how I was going to have a big, powerful, successful family. And that was, when you got the world by the tail, you think you control everything. Number one, I was a little bit cocky. When you're financially secure at the age of 30, and you're a seven-figure person already, you think you control everything, right? I'm like, I'm going to get the right wife. I'm going to have the right kids, and I'm going to have this big, powerful family, and everyone's going to be awesome, and everyone's going to, be successful in whatever field they're going to be in. And so I was just so driven. I started a children's charity. I needed more motivation than just money. So I started a place where I could help people more than they could help themselves. And I started All for One, which was helping orphans in underdeveloped countries with health and education programs, and started in Nicaragua, eventually went all over the world with it, building schools, orphanages, and clinics, and partnering up with Save the Children, World Vision, Care International, many other organizations, and just helping out most at-risk people in the world, which are kids, but more likely to be orphans in developing countries. So that was my new passion as well as my business. And then,
Jeff, and you weren't married at that time, right? That you started
all
that.
Single, all in
single.
my.
You're single.
I was juggling that too, but in reality, I put a lot of that stuff on the back burner because I was such a driven business person. People get into that field, and if that takes them over and dominates their thought process, I was so much about making money, giving back, my charity, my philanthropy. But I did want a family. I did dream of a family. I dreamt of a big family because it was my brother and I, Brian and I, growing up, 18 months apart. And so it always looked like the bigger families had more fun. I don't know if it's true, all the kids, the places that had 5, 6, 7 kids, everything was crazy all the time, but it seemed more exciting. And our life was.
It is.
So that's what I wanted. I saw it and I'm like, I want that.
Yeah.
And I was blessed at age 37 and met the person that was to become my wife. And we started having kids right away. So That's the origin story. That's the beginning part of the story, I guess.
keep with that, because I heard something the other day that made me think about our conversation today, which is something that most parents of children with special needs, you don't hear say, which is when you are going to become a parent. And I think this is especially true as a father who is about to have a son. You have an idea as to what your son is going to be to an extent. You've got your favorite ball team. Maybe you got your favorite college, whatever. There's things you have in mind. When your child is born and a diagnosis comes into play, you don't have the child that you expected or hoped for. So you met your wife. Tell us about continuing the chronological path there, along with getting to the point of having your children and then the diagnosis, if you will.
All right. So I met my wife, Cam, in the business that I'm in. I was speaking out in California, in Monterey, actually, at a big event. Thousands of people were there. We met at that event, became good friends, quickly accelerated our relationship. And I've been waiting to find that right partner, and I've been waiting to have kids. I was 37. I don't know that guys have a biological clock, but I felt like I did. And I better get started. If I'm going to have a big family, I don't want to be too old of a dad. I thought about, I don't want to be in a wheelchair at my kids' high school sport games, right? I wanted to be young enough to enjoy that. So we started on kids right away. And we had Justice, our first son, in 2008. Typical boy. My wife's Vietnamese, but she's from LA, born and raised in Los Angeles. But we had a mixed family. And so we had Justice in 2008, and he was typical. He was fine. Everything was normal. And doting parents. We just had so much fun with that first child. And we went back to back, Irish twins. Literally a year later, we had our second son, Noah. And our son, Noah, came out very typical. Also, another cute little boy getting started. And then 2 years later, we had our daughter, Love. Well, somewhere about 6 months before our daughter was born, we started noticing in Noah lack of responsiveness. We thought he had a hearing issue, right? He wouldn't respond to his name. It was between the ages of 12 months and 18 months. You just call him and he wouldn't look and he wouldn't pay attention. And we thought something's wrong. But that was the first time. I mean, the first 12 months were so normal. He was one of those kids who slide into autism, and we saw him. I watched him slip away, and in that year two, 12 to 24 months, Noah slowly became less and less attentive and less responsive and less typical. We got his hearing tested, and then we went and got the exams and the diagnosis about 18 months in, and then probably like most people, had a very hard time coping with that at that time. It wasn't just the diagnosis at the moment, but it was all the dreams and goals and my controlling personality. I was wondering how this could happen, and then you go right into fixing it. What did I do wrong? Was it the Pitocin that we used to, start the birth? Was it
contractions, right?
Yeah, start the contraction. What was it? Was it the vaccines that we got, the cocktails in the first year, all the vaccines? Was it, too soon? Was I too old of a dad? Was it her growing up in Simi Valley, California, where they tested nuclear stuff years ago? You don't know. You start looking at everything. Should we have eaten more organic food? You start going through everything.
Sure.
And then we had our daughter, Love, and thank God, once again, typical. No challenges with her. And then 2 years after her, we had Elijah. And 18 months, between a year and 18 months, same thing has happened with Noah, happened with Elijah. And it was devastating. It was devastating to have a second child. We were going to have 10 kids. Just truth be told, that's one of the reasons I was single till I was 37. I was so cocky on my first or second date with someone. I tell them, look, I'm looking to have 10 kids. Are you up for that? You down with 10 kids? Plus, I want to adopt from all over the world. I got this children's charity. I've been going to Central America and Africa and Asia. And, I want to do this big thing and scared off so many of the candidates that would be my wife.
You filtered them out. You just basically, you filtered
That's
them
what
out.
it is.
The ones that couldn't hang with it.
And here we are, 4 kids in, 2 with autism.
Wow.
And we had to put the brakes on it. We don't know genetically what it was. And so that was that's at the same time I'm building a business. It's successful. I'm in leadership for thousands of people. I've got a charity trying to save the world. I'm trying to save kids that aren't mine. I've got trouble at home and challenges there and the stress that puts on a relationship, and her family's in LA, my family's in Chicago. We didn't have the support of our immediate family anywhere near us. A lot of people have the luxury of having siblings or parents that are there helping all the way. We didn't have any of that. So we felt isolated on an island as we were going through this and figuring it all out.
Yeah. And as Sean and I, the 3 of us are members of that same community, that idea initially where we're looking to blame somebody or something that happened. It wasn't us. It wasn't, something happened to our children. And Jeff, did it slow your progress down professionally? Did it, like, stuff that you were working with? I mean, obviously just more things to balance, but how did anything change for you? Did it alter your path at all? Did it give more, impetus, fire behind it?
Well, it did a few things, Brian. Number one, it humbled me. I don't think it was God trying to humble me, but I was humbled. I went from thinking I control everything in life to finding out I didn't.
Yeah.
And something that, I had made a lot of money when I was young and single, and I'm glad I did because I needed it. We tried everything. You name it, we've done it for these kids. That was one thing I did for my wife, and it was a blessing that I was able to. I said, Cam, whatever you want to try, I'm not going to criticize it. I'm not going to judge it. Whatever it costs, I'm going to do it. That's what I promise you, in knowing that you're going to be dealing with this more than I am, because at that time I had 600 locations in my financial services business and tens of thousands of people depending on me there too.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've still got to go to work. I still got to go I've got orphanages and schools. I've got to fly to other countries. And most people with the diagnosis, it's like a showstopper. Their life stops.
Yeah.
And me, I had built the habit, and look, I'm not special, but I probably am a little different. I had built the habit whenever the going gets tough, I dive back into my work. I go hide in my work. And so I worked extra hard. With these diagnoses, I worked harder. I was actually financially able to retire at that time. I probably could have retired financially, stayed home. The way my business worked, there's a lot of residual income. And having a 7-figure residual income, I could have stayed home, but I couldn't stay home. My heart couldn't handle it. I needed to go to work where I could get little wins and self-gratification to be able to go home and deal with what was going on there.
Right.
And of course, afford nannies and afford ABA therapy, speech therapy, occupational therapy, and about everything, stem cell, you name it, we did it. Right. And to be able to afford all that stuff, I still needed and wanted to go to work. And so I worked through it, Brian, and I kept my pedal to the floor. I have this goal-setting course called Living Life on Purpose, where you start with the end in mind. You write your own eulogy and work backwards. You decide what you want your whole life to end up at. And then you backwards engineer it to what you got to do tomorrow. And so it's compelling in the fact that what your goals are for the year 2021 isn't just about 2021. It's tied into the whole rest of your life. Now, certainly everything in life is subject to change, but I still had my goals. I still had my dreams. I still had all the things I needed to do, including a successful, happy family.
Right.
I didn't know how I was going to do it with these 2 diagnoses, and now, a challenged marriage, which all of men out there, especially, or women, whoever's watching this, I don't know what the divorce rate goes up to with special needs children, but it goes through the roof.
Yeah,
Almost
it does.
the inevitable factor, right?
Yeah.
It goes to the
Yeah.
high 80s.
Yeah.
And boy, were we on that edge a lot of times over the last years. I mean, just for all the obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it makes me more determined. So
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, how have your neurotypical children, how have they adjusted? And adjust is not the right word, but what do you think, as having children with some special needs issues, have they developed in a way differently than what you would have originally anticipated, originally thought of? Like, what's your perspective on your other children?
Yeah. So let me tell you a story real quick. I'm going to try not to cry telling you guys this story. But
we cry all the time, Jeff. So
is this one of those shows you're allowed to cry on?
You're allowed to cry.
Oh yeah, I had to hold it back when you talked about the diagnosis itself. I could feel it.
Too.
We've been there. So yes.
So Justice, my oldest son, who's 1 year older than Noah, when they were about 3, he came to me, or he was asking me and my wife, why doesn't my brother want to play with me? Why doesn't he talk to me? And he wasn't old enough to understand autism. Yeah. He just wasn't, not at 3. Here he was talking and happy, and he had a brother, but he didn't have a brother.
Yeah.
And he just didn't understand it, and I couldn't explain it. And I felt so sad for him at that moment, because I'm like, he's going to grow up, instead of having a buddy to play basketball, baseball, soccer, football, whatever it is. I don't know what it's going to look like, but it isn't going to look like that. Yeah, and he's going to be there helping give and do all the stuff. He didn't sign up for that. Right. And it was sad. And then we sandwiched him in between the daughter. It became a lot more fun and easy. I don't know why. It was a blessing having a typical, neurotypical child, and then special needs, and then another one. And then we had it's like it was balancing it out. There's a balancing factor there. And so, look, here's the benefit. There's been a blessing. Not only did I gain a lot of humility, which I think has made me a better human being in my life. I was the guy on the airplane, the young, successful businessman on the airplane who in the morning flight on the business trip heard the baby crying across the plane. And I was the guy who said, will you shut that baby up? I'm the guy in the store going, what are you doing? Why don't you give your kid a piece of candy or not bring him shopping?
I can't even imagine that.
I'm going in the restaurant. Man, what goes around comes around. I feel like I may have brought this upon myself for being a jerk earlier in life. But I went from being that guy who was so annoyed to being now the guy who, those are my kids.
Right.
And I'm also the one who has way more patience than ever. I was never somebody with patience. Some would still argue I don't have much patience, but I've got a lot more than I ever would have. And my kids and my wife and all of our friends and all of our family are a lot more considerate, are a lot kinder, are a lot more patient as human beings. We're better people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We're understanding of everybody, not just special needs kids, just everybody. Yeah. I'm just more understanding of a human being, of other people.
Yeah,
and
we like to.
And I think I'm just better for it. And that's a blessing of other blessings. That's one of the main ones that comes out of having a special needs child.
We like to say that, it hit us. One of our viewers had actually chimed in and made a comment that has stayed with us, which is that there really is no such thing as special needs, because everybody has the same needs. But if you have a disability, whether it's developmental delay, autism, whatever the case might be, the needs are the same. You just have more of the same needs. The amount that you need is the same, And so when you're dealing with that, then your empathy for other people, that's something that you gain. But I'll be honest and say that I don't always know that I'm the most patient. But as a result of these conversations that we have with people, which is why I'm so thankful for the show, I catch myself in moments with my son Elijah, where my patience is needed. And so that's a continuous, work in progress. Tell us how you came about living your life on purpose. And I'm curious as to where that factors in with the special needs component, because I've taken that course with you twice, and each time I'm not the same person. And me as a father to a child with special needs factors into how I write the stuff. And I never told you this, but I'm someone who, my dad is a realist. So he's very like, every day we're closer to death. You're not going to be here forever. I was like, dude, I'm trying to watch Scooby-Doo. He would tell me this at 13 growing up in the Virgin Islands. I'm like, that is heavy. But he was trying to let me understand and realize that if you accept the fact that departure is inevitable, your stay has so much more value. So that's why I appreciate, what you do. But when I do it, I'm thinking from a special needs perspective. So tell us how that came about, and then how the special needs component even factors into it.
Well, like a lot of people, when we're young, we're big dreamers. And then I got into business and personal development, and I started finding out that every book on success has a chapter in it about goal setting. Every autobiography or biography about every successful person in the world, usually there was some reference to goals. Someone had a dream or someone had a goal, right? And they say a goal is a dream with a deadline. So it doesn't matter what those are. I realized that there was a cross-section and overlapping thread or chapter on every successful person that they set out to achieve something and achieve it. So if I wanted to be a big achiever, I needed to learn about goal setting and goal achieving. So I started going to all these seminars, buying all the books, and I found little pieces and parts of all the books I've ever read about goal setting and goal achieving. And a lot of people think it's about having stuff, but it's not. It's really about fulfillment. It's not about a destination. The journey is supposed to be fulfilling in your pursuit. Otherwise, it isn't worth it. If you want to really be let down by a goal, by achieving a goal, sacrifice everything for it and find out that it doesn't bring you the happiness you thought it would. The real goal is fulfillment, joy, and happiness, not necessarily something.
Yep.
But if you're on track, like they say, people who love what they do for a living never work another day in their life.
Right.
If you love what you're up to every day and you're not belaboring getting up in the morning, you can't wait to get after the day, and you don't want to shut it down at night. You're up late still working on whatever it is you're working on. That's wonderful. And it should be fulfilling. And the whole premise is you set these goals that you think will make you happy and fulfilled. And then if they're right, because the pursuit of them, no matter how arduous and how challenging the pursuit may be, you're happy doing it. You're happy sacrificing. And so in life, this Living Life on Purpose program, this workshop I do every year, it applies also to planning out the fulfillment and happiness of my kids, both my typical and my autistic kids and my special needs kids. I want them to be happy. I just want them to be fulfilled. As much, I don't know what a normal life is. Everyone talks about normalcy, and I keep getting, people who are in the autistic community, they're always correcting me on politically correct ways of saying things, and you don't really say this, and challenging me on my feelings. And you got to be a little careful as to not over criticize people that are going through, don't put so many rules on people who are going through this, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
The point is, I don't know if anybody has a normal life, but I just want my kids to have a happy life.
Yeah.
So whatever that, and I want my wife to still be happy too.
Yeah.
We went on Valentine's Day. This show is obviously being recorded a couple of days after Valentine's Day and our anniversary. Our anniversary is the 15th. Valentine's Day is on the 14th.
Nice.
And we took Noah, our oldest autistic son, we took him out on our date together.
Yeah.
And he had fun. We went to a restaurant. We went shopping. We just did some stuff. And it was just good to have him with it. It made her happy. My wife was so much happier because he was included. One of our sons was included. And just whatever. She's so happy. The more time I spend with our autistic boys, it makes her happy.
Interesting.
And if you only have a child, whether they're typical or not, you're going to spend most of your time there. Right. But having 3 typical kids and having 2 autistic ones, dividing up that time and still running a business and a international children's charity, I I've got a lot on my plate, and where I spend my time becomes crucial. You'd think my wife would be happier if I spent my time with her, but it's happier for her when I spend my time with the autistic boys.
Interesting. I was going to say that the one thing that that we were getting to was, in light of all of this, with the 4 children of your own, you then adopted a 5th child, and I love the story of David. I love all the stories that you've told about him. But will you share that a little bit, because as you're talking about, now you have 4 children, 2 are neurotypical, 2 that have autism. You have challenges, and then you still, because I know you always wanted to have a big family, but you still made that decision to adopt a child from another country, which, by the way, just speaks to your level of, generosity, openness, compassion, right? Empathy, like all of that. But how did you get to that decision? Like, how did you guys come up with that?
It was a dream my whole life. As soon as I started my children's charity and I started traveling all around the world and I saw these kids, I think every child deserves a parent. I don't believe in entitlement, and kids are spoiled nowadays way too much. But every child in the world deserves the love of parents. And there's so many people in the world that don't have that.
Yeah.
Period. And by the way, special needs in other countries, oh my God. If you get out there in some of these countries, they have no programs. They have no help. So
I've heard.
And nothing. And so I'm not going to get into that right now. We need to do something about that. I mean, part of my international children's charity is going to have an element focusing on special needs kids, because it's just the way they're treated, the way they're cast out. Talk about low value put on the life of somebody. But I'm not going to get into that right now. I always wanted to adopt kids from all over the world. When Cam and I got together, we talked about it. That was a deal breaker for me. You got to be willing to do that. The rules changed with our kids being born. She actually probably did not want to go ahead and adopt anybody because her hands are full.
Right.
And, it was a huge point of contention, adopting David. And it wasn't about David. It was just, I wanted to adopt more kids. I wanted a big family. I still wanted more kids, and I still want more kids. I still want 10 or more. I want to help these kids in other countries. And she would probably tell you that was selfish at that time because of her time.
Right.
Sure.
But it was a lifelong dream of mine. So we brought David home at the age of 4 from Sierra Leone. For those of you out there, Sierra Leone is where the movie Blood Diamond was filmed. Child soldiers, genocide, the Ebola virus. They had so many challenges out there in West Africa, in Sierra Leone. And our son David, both of his parents died of Ebola when he was 1. So he was a true orphan at the age of 1. We adopted him at 4, brought him home. And guess what? Another special needs kid. He came home, and he was so cute and so adorable and smart. But we noticed some issues, bonding issues, which adopted kids always have bonding issues. And then especially if kids get abused, which I'm sure he was. There's even more trust issues. And then there's acting, like to achieve survival. I could tell that he was in survival mode his whole life. Still he has eating disorders right now at the age of 8. He's been here 4 years, never missed a meal, eats more than I do, and he's tiny.
Wow.
He's still in his mind is programmed that he doesn't have enough. But more, he's got something called RAD, reactive attachment disorder. We took him to therapies, and there's a lot there too. So there's a whole nother challenge on top of our other 2 special needs. Now we got another child with a special need. And so, it's like, God, bring it on. You can't give us more. I mean, I still in my heart, I feel more like for those kids that have leukemia, St. Jude's kids, our kids, none of them have a death sentence. They're going to be with us for years, happy, healthy. And so I'm thankful. I'm still counting my blessings. I got 3 more kids coming from Uganda this year. They're adults now. They were the first orphans in an orphanage I built 16 years ago in Uganda.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah, to share the story of that, because I've heard of the trip where Chadrick and Denson were seen as adults, and how that goes back to their introduction. Do you share that, if you will, please?
So I was young. I was in Africa. I was 30, 31, 32. I was in my early 30s going to Africa for my charity. And one of my business partners had donated their house to a church when they had left and got to the United States with their 6 kids, and they turned it into an orphanage. There were like 80 kids living in a 900 square foot house.
Wow.
And if you understand square footage, I mean, they slept like sardines on top of each other on the floor. And they had one classroom, which had no windows, a tin roof, dirt floors. And I'd never seen anything like it in my life. And so I raised money. We built a big orphanage out there, Kajoma Child Prosperity Center. And these 3 boys were 3 of the 80 kids I saw on that trip when I was out there in 05, 06. And I went back many years later, and the kids were growing, and I kept going back. And these 3 boys were the only ones at the end that were the first ones that were there, and they had lasted all the way through. Other kids had moved out and got transported elsewhere, and there were new kids in, but these 3 boys were adults working at this orphanage later on, and I didn't even recognize them. I hadn't been out there in a handful of years, and they had a big growth spurt, and these kids were now like 18, and they were grown men, and they ran up and gave me this big hug. I was scared when 3 grown men that were strong were running at me in Africa, right? And I'm like, what's going on? And they gave me this big hug, and they said, Dad, you're back, you're back.
Wow.
And I'm like, who are you guys? And they're like, we were we're Patrick, Danson, Shadrach. We were the kids from the beginning at the orphanage, and we're helping out Josephine build this one and run it now. And we're in school, and you're our dad. And I'm like, okay. And so they asked if they could be my sons and if they could change their last names to Levitan. And I said, sure. Who am I to deny you that? And I'd gone back the next few years and done things for them and taken them on little side trips. And now they got passports. We're getting them visas, and they're coming to the United States. They're about 22 years old now.
Amazing.
And my wife's like, what are we doing? What are you doing again? She's scared. And I'm like, they're adults. They're going to college. I'm going to take care of it. They're going to, they're awesome kids, though. They're young men of faith. They're kind. They're loving. They're generous. They're just really, really good kids. Young adults. They're not even kids. And so, we're going to have a few more. Anyway.
Well, I know that as you look at your future plans, I know that Sean and I, and probably a lot of the folks that we've had on the show and people who have been involved in what we're doing would love to be a part of that extension of All for One when you look at the special needs help, because we know that community here in the U.S., and we're grateful that depending on where you live, of course, resources are available. To your point, you have a lot of therapy resources, you have a lot of places to go to try to get support, and in other parts of the world, but frankly, there are other parts of the country that they don't have it as great as they do in certain states, but in other parts of the world, you're right, these children are just faced with a lack of promise because there's just no support structure. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Definitely we're going to be talking about that over the course of several years, because I think that that's an area where I'm sure people would love to be a part of that conversation and support to that vision. So that's beautiful. And Jeff, I know Sean, and you're probably gonna ask a question, but let me just ask this. Jeff, if you, so Cam has been the warrior to some degree, I think, to your acknowledgement.
To some degree, just even now, one of my little guy, he's 7, he can't go to sleep without mom being not beside him. So when it's bedtime, she takes him up to bed, and I go to bed, and she hasn't, most of the time she falls asleep there. And so, and then she wakes up in the middle of the night and comes back down or does whatever. She's the one the kids go to all the time for everything. And she's the warrior. She's paid a much bigger price than I have or ever will. She's allowed me, we have great communication though. When she's wore out and tired and needs me, she tells me. Financially, I support everything I can, and emotionally and physically, I'm trying to do better. I think I'm a horrible failure, and I think a lot of dads probably struggle with that, but I'm not giving up. I'm going to keep trying to be a better husband. I'm going to keep trying to be a better dad. I'm going to try to be more present. I'm going to try to give those kids and my wife the dream life that they deserve, and I'm just not quitting. The deal is just don't quit. Don't let that be an option. Don't look for the easy way out. And, life's still good. I think life's still great, by the way. I still love life. I'm still happy. I choose to be happy every day.
We're not using our children as the excuse, but as the reason, right, for the things that we do.
It's sad, being in the business I'm in on the financial side, developing people. I see so many people using their typical kids as excuses. Look, in life, you're either going to make excuses or results, not both. It doesn't matter if it's a real excuse or not. Excuses don't ever get you any further in life. Mm-hmm. All they do is weaken you. Whoever makes an excuse gets weaker every time they make it. Right. But you have and I don't want to look, if you had a tough life, you have a tough life. But for every person with a tough life and excuse, there's someone using that as the reason to go win.
Right.
And so I would just say, have a no quit attitude, and just don't make excuses for anything ever.
Yeah, we agree. And we've been inspired by you for many years in this business. And as you're aware, Sean and I do our financial presentations for families in the special needs community. And in fact, we're having an event tonight at 6:30 Pacific time for a special needs community. But I just want people to know, the folks to hear that we did that initiative with not only with your blessing, but your encouragement and the work that you do. And we're grateful for being in a business where we're making a difference in people's lives, helping them achieve their goals and their dreams by giving them that hope. We find, as we've spoken about before, that a lot of parents in the special needs community can't really see past, the immediate, today, this week, next. They're not really looking into the future. And so we've been grateful to have your guidance and looking, down that living life on purpose with the idea of starting with your eulogy and go back. Because we want families to understand that there's more than just their diagnosis. Sometimes their diagnosis becomes their sentence. And we want people to know that by giving and being of service, that you can actually change your family's life and direction, but also those of other people. So we're grateful to you for your leadership and your guidance and all of that. And just know that the work that we continue to do in that community is inspired by you and your family on a regular basis.
I'm so proud of you and Sean, Brian, you and Sean, your class, it's not a class that belittles it too much. The workshop, the commitment to special needs families and helping them financially and giving them hope. I think, when you give somebody hope, it's so powerful. And to have help beyond hope, to where you can actually get in there and help them have a better financial future, to be able to afford all the things ahead of them. I think it's powerful, and I think it's great. I'm so glad that you've put a spin on the traditional financial industry in seminars and directed it to all the resources necessary for families out there with special needs and typical families too.
For sure.
Yeah, and that means a lot.
Typical that have friends or family members that are special needs, and they have to have their finances in order, because when your friend or family member or someone you love and care about is in a financial challenge too, guess who they're going to come to for help? And the more stable you are financially, the better of service you could be to them. So,
yes,
for sure.
Awesome. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you. And the reason why that means a lot too is because people don't realize what it takes to go down this road to do something like that. Because as a parent, right away, your role is as a protector. When your child is diagnosed with a disability of some kind, you're even more the protector. And when someone has information of value and everything, to share, for some people, the line gets very blurred between protector and skeptic. And if you're doing this where you really care about people and everything, the one thing that having a child with special needs also does is it reminds you that people are people. So not only should we judge people individually on the content of their character and everything, but who someone was before a diagnosis will play a role in how they respond to the diagnosis or allow it to, affect them. So when you have these conversations where you're We've been talking about some of the topics that we do, or the financial piece, really, especially that one, because it's such a taboo thing, or it can be, but it's like everything else. If you don't talk about it, you're going to, and don't plan for it and take some kind of action, you're going to be a victim of it. And so to be able to do that, and then, have your partnership and, and blessing in that regard really, really, really means a lot.
Yeah. Well, and I will tell you this too, Jeff, just a comment. So, and I don't know if you even really realize this, but you met my oldest daughter, Jordan. We were at your home a few years ago. So Jordan grew up with a developmental delay. Jordan is the reason why I was exposed to this special needs community. And first of all, I know she's watching, and when she heard that we were going to have you on the show, she was, so thrilled, because she cares so much for you. But the inspiration that you have, provided for us, it goes several generations, and I'm, evidence of that. And Jordan is, and she has done phenomenally well. Any special needs parent would be proud to know, again, as you look into the future and not really understanding what the limitations may provide, what challenges they may have in the future. But, she now lives in the moment. She lives at upstate New York and is married, and, has a great job, full-time, but also part-time, is my assistant in our business, and has really established a tremendous independent life, and more than I could have ever hoped for. And it's because of continuing to breathe in possibility and speak possibility into existence. And so, I just wanted you to know that the impact that you have had for me personally, on my family, has now extended to the next generation of Altunians.
That's
so awesome. Thank you.
She's a great girl. I remember meeting her, and it's great. I love meeting other people's families, and especially if they have a child that's a little bit more special. I love it. And it happens, it seems to happen more regularly now. I think it's almost hard to go a week or two where I don't meet somebody who's got some sort of special need they're going through. And it's an immediate bonding factor between me and those parents, because we just know what we're going through. It's like a war veteran, and you just love them a little bit more. Everybody is just, you don't feel better. You just feel more comfortable knowing that you're not alone.
Right. Yeah. And that's because everybody wants to know that. And that's where what I was referring to earlier, where I said there's no such thing as special needs. Everybody has the same needs, but in that situation, it's just a little more special. And the need that everyone has is to know that they count, to know that they matter, and to be seen. We do this show live, on Facebook. And so when it's being viewed there before going to YouTube and the other outlets, viewers have an opportunity to mention things in the chat. And I usually wouldn't read one from beginning to end, but because of the person that posted it and the content of it, I have to just read that really quickly. And I think it falls in line with everything you've said, Jeff. Adam Hancock, who happens to be our branch office manager and is actually presenting with us this evening, is a young man who is a quadriplegic as a result of a catastrophic injury, which left him, paralyzed. And he says, regarding excuses, I couldn't agree more. Man's difficulties are a compound of his cowardices. To have difficulties in life, all it is necessary to do is to start running away from the business of livingness. After that, problems of unsolvable magnitude are assured. When individuals are restrained from confronting life, they accrue a vast ability to have difficulties with it. And that just carries so much weight and makes so much sense.
Powerful. Yeah. I know Adam, so that's what a powerful comment. And he's not an excuse maker,
For
sure.
Yes. And that's where I could hear you measuring your words, trying not to, thinking of the person who may be listening to this that says, well, you don't know my problems. My kids got this and I have this, and we want to be respectful of other people's situations. But when something is good or bad, it is compared to what? There's always a situation where, I saw a headline the other day, it actually came through my email, where it says, are you sick and tired of people saying it could be worse? And some people have a hard time with that, but it's just true. That's like they said, the story of the man with no shoes who complained until he met the man with no feet.
That's right.
It's true.
It's not, I'm not judging anybody. It's just excuses in general Think about it. What positive comes out? You think you're convincing other people around you to give you more sympathy, but they're not. They actually have their own excuses they think about.
Right.
And it doesn't strengthen you. So it's not about whether it's real or not, because people have a hard time. They're going through tough stuff. All kinds of people. And it's not comparing. It's just when you make the excuse, you immediately get weaker. And so we just need to get stronger instead of weaker. That's all.
Well, and I think conversations like this contribute to that, because, we're thankful that besides Facebook, we're on 15 different outlets, and we're working on a new outlet where people are going to be able to see this at some point in the future, which we'll be able to talk about in the future, which I'm very excited about. But for people to hear these conversations and to revisit these conversations, those moments when they feel that they're not really sure where to turn or where to go, and again, think that they're alone. These are the kinds of conversations that are empowering. And Jeff, I know that you, that Cam is your warrior, and we are thankful for those women in our lives who have made it easier, for lack of a better word, easier for us to do the things that we do, where we can work on our strengths and provide. And they provide other sources of support for our family. So I know that Cam is really a warrior, but without her, your life is different. Without you, her life is different. Together, you guys are really a formidable duo, and it's inspirational, considering everything that you've taken on together as a couple and as parents, and it's amazing who you are in the world. And so, as we kind of wrap up, as we're getting close to the end of our show already, and we always laugh, like we hit 50 minutes, we're like, man, I can't believe that this conversation is almost over. I am grateful to you for so many things, and this conversation in particular, and how you live your life is such an inspiration. And it makes me think about not the 2021 Brian, but the 2025 and the 2030 and the 2050 and the 2075. But beyond that, really, what's the world going to look like for my children and their children? And I'm inspired by you and your goal setting and living life on purpose on a regular basis. So I'm grateful to be in business with you and be in friendship with you and partnership with you. And I think that, as I usually sign off my part of the show, I usually say, at the end of the day, today especially, the world needs empathy and love. And I think that for those who don't know you from that perspective, I think that you exude that on a regular basis. Empathy and love is really what you've been talking about all this conversation, and what you talk about consistently. And I think that Sean and I feel that same way too. So I thank you again for your time and your partnership today, giving of yourself.
The feelings are mutual, Brian. Totally. Just everything we're involved with together, and we're just going through life together, right? And there's more things to do, and and all I would challenge everybody just out there, whatever you're going through, you got to first increase your capacity to be able to handle more, and then still shoot for happiness and joy and fulfillment. Just no matter what goes on in our life, that's all we got. That's all we got. I don't want to sound like Sean's dad. We all have a death sentence, right? From the day we're born, we're dying.
Yeah, that's true.
The whole thing is how you live whatever amount of life you have. Tomorrow's not promised, but while we're here, let's enjoy it. Let's have fun with the ride. Let's make the most of this one life that we have, and try to make other people's lives around us better. What goes around comes around. There's seed time and harvest time, and there's sowing and there's reaping. And if you're loving on people and encouraging people, you're going to get that back. If you're hating on people and judging people, you're going to get that back. And some people live in a world full of hate, and some people live in a world full of love. Same world. Go figure. What does that mean? It's the lens you're looking at it through. Right. I don't look at the fact that I've got challenges. I look at the fact that I have opportunities.
There you go. 100%. There you go. With that said,
you too.
Go ahead. With that said, as we get ready to wrap up, I wanted to ask you, I know that you generally do it towards the end of the year, in December, so that one is preparing for the year, ahead and everything. Will there be an opportunity for those that are listening that are interested in attending the Living Life on Purpose course? Absolutely. As a matter of fact, due to technology, we are recording, editing, breaking down that course. It's going to be downloadable off the internet sometime middle of the year.
You don't have to, you'll be able to get it on demand whenever you want, like everything else in this world.
Good.
Love it.
And we'll make sure that we make it available to our
By the way, when
audience.
you're having a bad day, let me just give you this.
Yeah.
When anybody out there listening, when you have a bad day, if you have your goals written down and they're within reach, manually, you got to grab your goals and read them, because you can only focus on one thing at a time. You could focus on your problems and your circumstances or your goals. When you focus on your goals, you feel better. And when you focus on your problems, you feel worse or incapacitated. So I just know that when I'm going through any challenges, I just read my goals like crazy. I'll read them over and over and over again to take my focus off my circumstance. I deal with my problems, but I focus on my future and my goals. And that gets me through the day.
That's fantastic. I mean, and if you're listening, for those of you listening, he said deal versus focus, not avoid, operating from objective reality. That is fantastic. So with that said, Jeff, I want to thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for your friendship, your leadership and mentorship as well. And for those of you that are listening, that are tuning in, wherever you might be, whenever you're hearing this, we thank you so very much. And as always, I like to thank the women that are in my life, my mom and my wife, Laura. I could never begin to do this and attempt to do anything that I do or be anything that I am or hope to be without them. So my gratitude is everlasting. And for anybody, everybody listening, just remember that somebody out there needs to know that they matter. Somebody out there needs to know that you care. So we thank you very much. We will see you next week. And if you're watching or listening, we love you.
And for those that want to know where Jeff's charity is, we put up on the screen, but it's allforone.org, all spelled out, allforone.org. Please check out All for One, see the great work that Jeff and his team are doing around the world. And let's all not only contribute, but look at the areas where we can add and expand the efforts, especially when it comes to supporting those children with special needs around the world. So, Jeff, thank you again for your time today and your leadership and your guidance. And we love you, man. Thank you again.
Love you too. Thanks for what you do.
Thank you. All right. Goodbye, everybody.